Good afternoon, Deputy Prosecutor James Stewart. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Angela.
Your first question is about South Africa and its possible withdrawal from the ICC. Would its withdrawal affect the credibility of the court?
It may affect the credibility of international criminal justice. Whether it would affect the credibility of the court as such is hard to say. I think the damage would be elsewhere. I think it would hinder the ability of the court to do its work. South Africa we see as a very important part of the family of the Rome Statute, the system of international criminal justice, and we hope that South Africa will stay with us.
Your second question is about the criticism that has been brought against the OTP with regard to pursuing one side of the conflict and not the other, for example, in Uganda or Cote d'Ivoire. What would your response be to this criticism?
Well, we understand the criticism. I think, for example, in Cote d'Ivoire, one of the difficulties we had was a resource difficulty. A decision had been taken to sequence the investigations there, and we were in the position, because of resources, of having to keep pushing down the line the second investigation, if I could call it that. That is now ongoing. It's perhaps a good thing that people don't seem to be terribly aware of it, because we can do our work quietly in Cote d'Ivoire without anybody making a fuss. But that investigation is highly active at the moment. So we are looking at the anti-Gbagbo forces, not just Gbagbo. With respect to other situations that we've gone into, we have tried to play an even hand where the evidence requires us to. For example, in Central African Republic, we are looking at the two major combatants, if you will, in the conflict that occurred there. And so I think the approach we take to situations has evolved since the time of that criticism, and I think the criticism in some ways has been understandable.
Speaking of the evolution of the OTP, there have been talks about reform. Are there reforms that you can speak to within the OTP that are currently ongoing?
Well, I think yes. Some of the reforms, from the point of view of outsiders, may sound quite boring, but for us they're important. We have, as an example, very recently rolled out our statement of core values. We've trained all of our staff, or almost all of our staff, in those core values. And in doing that, invented scenarios where you would have to apply the core values, and it really ignited an interesting debate in the various classes. And I took a number of those classes myself, and the interaction with our staff was really fun and really interesting in terms of trying to create a new sort of culture in the OTP, one that favors critical thinking and a very professional approach to the work we do. But there are many other things that are going on within the OTP. The Scientific Advisory Board, for example, has recently approved a number of standard operating procedures that we use in our forensic work. Those will be made public so that we be measured against those standards. We are continually training our investigative staff in the approach to interviewing witnesses. Now, we have to do that because our investigative staff is drawn from so many different countries, so many different backgrounds, and you need to have a coherent approach that you can use. We are constantly training our lawyers in advocacy, and again, you have people from different backgrounds, different systems, and you need somehow to create a coherent legal culture. So these things are happening all the time. But there's also the optimization of our structures. We are in the process right now of it's practically budget neutral, because we're really just reorganizing elements that already exist within the office, but we're going through a major revamping, if you will, of our whole system for managing information, evidence, and knowledge. So there are things happening within the OTP that we hope are going to make us a much more efficient, more effective organization, and those are just a few of them.
Capacity building and
Yes.
the OTP strategic goal number 9.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about what strategic goal number 9 is about?
I suppose it is about disruption of criminality. We've often found in other situations, even in the former Yugoslavia, as an example, that people involved in international crimes, Rome Statute crimes, are also involved in organized crime and transnational crime. And so the situation, for example, in Libya of migrants, there'll be one end of the spectrum will be matters that are concerned to us because they're Rome Statute crimes, but at the other end of the spectrum there will be criminality of concern to the Libyans, to the Europeans across the water in the Mediterranean. And so the idea is to combine resources and to combine intelligence where we can, exchange of information, assistance to one another, so that if the Italians, for example, find evidence that's of value to us in prosecuting Rome Statute crimes, we can get access to that. And vice versa, if we get evidence that could be of value to them in their organized crime investigations, we can share that to the degree possible. So it's partly that. That's really what Strategic Goal 9 is all about. In another situation in Central African Republic, we have said that when the Special Criminal Court is ready for action, we will share what we can with them to assist them in terms of building their crime base and their prosecutions. So it's a sharing of information, a sharing of experience and our own capacity, if you will, to help expand the ability to disrupt criminality and bring perpetrators to justice.
What role can advocacy groups like the Africa Group for Justice and Accountability play to support the work of the International Criminal Court and to support international criminal justice?
Well, I would suggest exactly what's happening in this symposium today, speaking up for the court, reminding people about the role the court can play, the importance of international criminal justice and the role of the ICC in that system, but also on occasion being critical of the court so that we have feedback about what we are doing. In essence, tough love, and at the same time speaking up for us.
Thank you very much for joining us.